right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joe. He's Nick. You're listening to the Nick and Joe Show, coming to you on the Think Radio broadcast network, ThinkRadio.ca. And we are live, not just over the internet, but we are now live on FM radio. Not everywhere, but hey, you got to start somewhere. And Nick, why don't you just say a word or two about the two stations that are carrying us as of tonight?
Well, the views expressed by the hosts and the guests of this show are not necessarily reflective of the management of 102.9 and 104.5, located in the heart of the Ottawa Valley, home flagship station for the best Canadian conservative talk show in the country.
It's funny. Yeah, because I knew we had to do the disclaimer. Obviously. Yeah, I know. Obviously. Yeah. But
that's not what you were thinking of, though.
No, but it's funny that, I say, tell us a little bit about this station. And, our listeners have to go, okay, Nick's going to tell us about these stations. And the very first thing that comes out of your mouth is, well, they're not really responsible for anything that we're saying. And
okay, let me tell you about the they then.
Okay.
I think radio station.
Go on.
These frequencies got started, I'm going to say, as far back as early 90s. And the idea at the time was like pirate radio. There were a bunch of people who wanted to, came out of a little bit more left-wing, anti-establishmentarianism mentality. And they wanted to ride around in a van with a low-wattage radio station in the back of their van telling people the truth, right, about government and you name it. That's where the genesis for the station comes from. It's not that. Now they have a wide variety of programming, a wide variety of different musical tastes, everything from reggae to old-time country, you name it. They still have a ton of vinyl. I'm in the control room now. I'm just looking around, and there are racks and racks and racks of albums, and even more of CDs. That gives you an idea how long this station's been around. And they still have two turntables to my left that they play vinyl on. So they're a very eclectic radio station. And when I first approached them back in 2000, it might even go back. No, it was 2000 I got started here. In 2002, I went to Ottawa. And I came in. I had been a truck driver for 10 years, listening to Rush Limbaugh every day. Didn't realize it, but he was teaching me how to run a radio show. Everything from using parody music to how long to keep people on call, when to go for breaks, all that stuff. He was my talk show hero. And I really grieve his passing because he was a mountain of a man in this industry and set the course and plowed the ground for hundreds of other talk show hosts who have come along in his wake. So I came in here and I told the management at the time that I wanted to do a conservative Catholic radio show. And they looked at me and said, "You want to do a what?" But they were looking for any live content they could find because it was a small station. It was only about a few watts. I forget the exact number, but it was very small. And, you could hear it at the edge of town. Actually, you could hear it almost at Pembroke, especially when you have the two frequencies. So that's how things got started. And when I sat down in the studio for the first time, we had a push-button phone. Remember, if you look back to the 70s, those phones that had multiple lines, each line had a button and would flash. You had to press the button when you picked up the receiver to take the next call.
Sure.
That's how we did our phone-ins. So we'd give the number out, and then people from the area who were listening would call in, and you never knew what was going to come out the other end of that speaker. It was wild. It was the Wild West. And, we certainly, it was an up and down relationship, more up than down. I did stay for 2 years and enjoyed it and learned a lot. And that's what basically was the fuel in the rocket to get things started. So now when I sit in this room, and it's not the same room, it's not even in the same building anymore, they've come light years. And I want to congratulate the board and the membership of this station for making sure that they kept the flame burning for this is a cooperative radio station. It's not privately held. It's not for profit is the word I'm looking for. It's not for profit, which I don't have a problem with. I think, if you can make money doing this, then great. But their focus has always been on local talent, a lot of local music, and it's given a lot of people a platform to be able to express themselves that way. So congratulations to the management and staff of the radio station for that vision that they have. And they've allowed us to come. What's really surprising in all this is they let me back in. That's the funny part. They let me back in.
Well, maybe that had something to do with me.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't be surprised. They said, well, okay, we want Joseph, but to get Joseph, if we got to take him, okay, fine.
Oh, dear.
So that's kind of a little bit sneak peek into the radio station here in Killaloe.
Well, we're happy to be on, and it's been a bit of a journey getting to this point. Because there were renovations that were ongoing. I won't say a change in management, but certainly some adjustments I understand in the management side of things. And oh dear! And then of course COVID hit. That didn't help. But anyway, here we are. So glad. And as with most things on the Nick and Joe show, it's we planned it, and then it just sort of kind of, when they say something falls into your lap, Nick, it was more along the lines of this kind of toppled off a cliff today into our lap. We knew that we were going to be doing this imminently, but we had no idea how imminent it actually was. So there it is. Okay. Let's get back on. Oh, by the way, I just want to say one more quick word about the last hour, and that is, I'm not sure if people really realize how hard it is to carry on a monologue for half an hour, for an hour, especially when you're not prepped, when you're not ready to do a monologue. Because so much of what we do is dynamic between us, but it was it's not easy, Nick, and
no, it's not.
Anyway, I'm glad that I didn't fumble the ball too much, but
no, you did fine.
But there it is,
all right,
C10, which
would
is
bring an end to all this,
and that's what a way to segue into a serious topic, because I don't know, I really don't know what exactly the standards are going to be if this particular piece of legislation passes. C10 is a bill currently before the House of Commons. It's passed second reading now, and it's in the committee, or it was referred to committee this week. And what it is it's basically a bill that authorizes the government through its various agencies to monitor and to control and regulate what's going on the internet. Now, the cover story on this, or the cover for the government, and it's in fairness, I'm not going to throw stones pardon me, at the government on this. As I said in the last segment, or in the last hour, I can't remember which segment it was. Never ascribe to conspiracy when it comes to government, which you can explain through stupidity. So I'm not going to say that the government is conspiring to control our speech, et cetera, et cetera. But what they are trying to do, I think, out of a sincere desire to to eliminate racism and all forms of that kind of odious behavior, that they want to be able to regulate what is being said and not said on the internet. And originally they were not going to include, they were going to include originally social media, and then they inserted a clause that exempted social media, and then that clause was stripped out now, and while the government is saying that they have no intention of including social media in the actual legislation, the fact is that at the moment there is nothing in the legislation exempting social media. So we all assume that it's going to be included in whatever these rules are. But whether it's included or not, Nick, isn't this another example of government overreach? And to me, it begs the bigger question of whether or not you can actually through legislation, whether or not you can actually stop racism and hate and other forms of stupid interaction and behavior between human beings. And I don't think it's possible. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you're worried about hate speech, or let's call it stupid speech, because maybe it's not just hate, maybe it's all kinds of silly conspiracy theories, etc. Well, the best way to debunk those is by having free speech, so that people get to hear the silly stuff, and then they get to hear and read the other stuff, the intelligent stuff that debunks it. So, as I've often said, having had some experience professionally in dealing with racism and particularly with anti-Semitism, not everybody in our community, the Jewish community, would agree with my assessment on this. But my feeling, very strong feeling, is that the best way to combat anti-Semitism, the best way to combat racism altogether, is not to limit free speech, but it's to enhance it, to allow other people out there to have their say. Nazi Germany was not successful because it was not an example of what happens when you have unlimited free speech. Nazi Germany was successful because when they came into power, they actually did limit free speech, and as a consequence, no concerted opposition was ever able to grow. And the only thing that people heard, particularly youth, was the government message, which in that case was quite malevolent. Now, nobody's suggesting that the Canadian government is going to all of a sudden become anti-black or racist or anti-Jewish or anything like that. But you understand that it's by limiting free speech for positive reasons, you're also providing the tools for somebody who is perhaps not as well disposed or polite or decent, that if they gain control of the apparatus of government, the tools are already there for them to be able to simply substitute their brand of the proper speech for somebody else's brand. So the only real way that you can control racism in this sense or hate on the internet is not through limiting free speech, but expanding it.
You're absolutely right. Although I would argue that what's going on, the intent of this bill, because you're right to point out there's nothing in the bill that would include social media, but there's nothing in the bill that exempts it either, which leaves the door wide open to abuse. And this government, and I'm talking about the federales now,